Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video we're going to be looking at the date and time libraries provided by Java 8. So prior to Java 8 there were the date and calendar classes, and if you're working on something like Android, which still uses Java 7, you're going to have to use those. But for this tutorial series we're going to be focusing on the Java 8 libraries that are new and that are quite a bit better. So the first thing we're going to look at is called the LocalTime. So the LocalTime, all it does is you can initialize it to an hour and minute. So the hour, it ranges from 0 to 23, so we're working in military time. So we could have an hour of 5 and a minute of, let's say, 10. And then we could just print this out really easily using LocalTime. And now let's just run it and we'll see, okay, we got 5 and 510. So that worked well. Now we can change this by doing, let's see here, so LocalTime dot, so we can minus, let's see here, a number of hours to subtract. So for example, so the minus, method for the LocalTime class, let's get the documentation to pop up here. It takes in an amount to subtract and then a unit. So let's subtract, let's say 1 hour, and then we're going to specify that we want to subtract it from, so let's say we're going to want to use the temporal, or an instance of a temporal unit. So in this case we just want to specify that we want to subtract an hour. So to do that we use something called the chrono unit, and all this is, it's just an interface, we can look at it, that implements temporal unit such that it provides definitions for all of these different types of like time units. So it provides a definition for minutes, seconds, let's see here, hours, etc. So let's see here, we can look at this. So we have this duration class, and all it's doing is it's creating a duration of 3600 seconds for 1 hour, and that's how we're defining an hour. So we're going to subtract 1 hour, and let's see here, we try to print this out, but we still get our original time of 510. So why is this? Well, it turns out that just like strings, everything inside of this date API, like all the times and all the dates we work with, they're immutable. So what that means, if remember, is that we can't actually modify the contents or the state of the original variable once we've created it. So once we've created this LocalTime, any kind of operations we do, such as like subtracting, they're not going to be able, they're not able to modify anything within the time. The only way to do that is to reassign the original variable to the output that we get when doing this minus operation. So why would we have all of this be immutable? Like, why create an API with every date and every time being immutable? Well, it turns out that this is very useful when we're working with multi-threaded programs. We're going to get to concurrency in the next few videos, but for now just remember that whenever you have immutable objects, they're good because then you don't have to worry about issues that might come up when you're working with multiple threads. Okay, so now we run and we get the desired output of 4 minutes 10, or sorry, 4:10, just 4 hours 10 minutes. Okay, so that was working with times. But, this is kind of, if we just worked with times, this is limited because we can only specify an hour and minute. Normally, we want to specify a maybe year, a month, and a day. So to do that, we use the local date class. The local date class lets us specify a year, so we might specify 2015, and then we can specify a month, like, let's say May, using this enum inside of the month class. Okay, and then let's see here, let's just say we're just going to use a day of 20. Alright, and so we can print this out, and it works like we would expect. 2015, that's the year, month is 05, and day is 20. And same way before, we can we can use some of the operations provided in the local date class. We can plus or we can minus. So let's see here, maybe we could, let's say add, here let's just add a day actually. So we're going to add 1 day, and that should push us up to the 21st, and that works just fine. Now let's say that, what happens if we add maybe 10 days? If we add 10, or we would need to add 12 days. If we add 12 days, then what's going to happen? We're going to go into the month of June, right? Because May has 31 days. So we have to add 11 days, and then we have to add one more to get to June. We do this, and we get to June 1st. Notice that the month incremented automatically. That's just built-in functionality provided by the date and time classes. Okay, so that worked well, but now suppose, whenever we specify a date, we might also specify a time. When we have this, for example, we have this date, but suppose we want to specify that on June the 1st at 5 p.m. this is going to happen if we're building maybe like a calendar application or some kind of application that sends out an email at 5 p.m. every third week of June, for example. So if we had that, then we would need to do something like local. We need to have the ability to store date and time info. So in order to do that, we use the local DateTime class. So let's see here. We can do local DateTime. Now local DateTime dot let's see here of. So now when we do this, we can put in a date, a local date, and we can put in a time. So we can put in local time, and it's just going to combine these two together. So now if we try to print it out, we're just going to see that this is 2015, and then so that's the first part. This is the date, and then this T, it's kind of a delimiter. It tells us when the time is actually, it tells us that the rest of the string specifies the hour of day. So it tells us that the time is this, and it tells us that the hour is, it tells us that the hour is that, and minute is that, and it tells us the date is this to the left-hand side. Alright, cool. And so similarly, we also have plus and minus operations here. So we can add minutes, we can add seconds, we can add days. So basically just combining the functionalities of date and of local date and local time. So pretty straightforward API. Just remember that whenever you work with it, all of these guys are immutable. So whenever you want to modify the contents of a date or time, you have to, call one of these methods, and then you have to reassign the original variable. All right. So that wraps up this video, and the next we're going to look at time zones and how to format dates. All right, see you guys then.